handbag. Ancient Sumerians were more than familiar with handbags, or perhaps objects that modern people perceive as such.
In the silent sands of ancient Sumer, a professor uncovered a small stone handbag that should not have existed. It carried symbols and questions older than history itself. What began as a quiet discovery soon shook scientists. What was this object truly meant to carry, and why was it left for us to find now? Stay tuned as we explore. A handbag carved from time. There are few images from ancient times that are as strangely intriguing as the small object resembling a modern handbag. Initially, it may seem whimsical and nonsensical. However, as its presence is repeatedly observed, it begins to evoke a sense of unease. The familiar shape can be found in various corners of the globe, from being carved by the Sumerians in Iraq to being incorporated into Maori customs in New Zealand, and even appearing in ancient relics in Central America. Despite the different locations, cultures, and time periods, this simple form reappears consistently. Once this pattern is truly recognized, it captivates your attention and cannot be ignored. The earliest instances can be traced back to the conclusion of the era of glaciation. Just that one detail itself undermines the idea of mere chance. This form journeyed across different lands and endured through millennia. It subtly poses a query that won't let up. What was it about this specific object that captured the attention of numerous ancient individuals, all crafted in a similar manner, with an identical sense of equilibrium? This inquiry ceased to be remote and abstract amid the scorching temperatures of the Iraqi desert, close to the ancient metropolis of Uruk. The dig initially began in a rather ordinary manner. The group came across fragments of pottery, eroded stones, and cracked tablets, all typical remnants of past civilizations. The sun beat down on them as they continued their work. Suddenly, a breakthrough occurred. Mike Adams, a new member of the archaeological team hailing from Oregon, felt a jolt as his shovel hit a solid object. The sensation traveled through his arms, indicating that this was no ordinary discovery. The stone in question appeared to have been crafted with precision and skillful hands. While removing the grime, a distinct form started to appear. The object had a rectangular shape and a smooth surface, with a handle that curved at the top. Mike was so shocked that he forgot to breathe. His hands shook, not because of any warmth, but due to a sudden realization. What he thought was rubble turned out to be a finely crafted stone purse, elegantly nestled underground. The skill displayed was remarkable. Delicate geometric designs adorned its exterior. Curves merged with intricate forms, creating precise patterns that appeared almost robotic. Even after being underground for centuries, the rock retained a gentle shine. It seemed as though time could not diminish it. Mike sensed a mysterious vitality within the artifact. He promptly summoned the chief archaeologist, Dr. Asha Neifer. Upon laying eyes on it, her curiosity transformed into astonishment. The artifact corresponded with the mysterious symbols on handbags that scholars had discussed for ages. Over the years, similar designs had been observed solely in engravings and sculptures throughout Mesopotamia. Deities, rulers, and legendary creatures were frequently depicted clutching these identical bags. Some experts referred to them as ceremonial pails, while others quipped they were the handbags of deities. A minority theorized that they represented sacred wisdom or something even more peculiar. Nonetheless, no one had ever come into possession of one before. Mike held the weighty stone in his arms without comprehending the significance of his actions. This object was more than just a valuable find. It seemed to connect the realms of legend and tangible existence. The area surrounding Uruk, a once thriving center of Sumerian civilization, had unveiled a secret that had long been obscured by the past. What had initially been a tedious excavation now seemed to mark the beginning of an enthralling narrative. For a long time, the handbag icon was seen as just a decorative element, with no real significance, merely a touch of creativity. However, now it was evident and intentional. Crafted from an unconventional type of stone and adorned with meticulous patterns, it sparked a different inquiry. Instead of focusing on its origin or purpose, the attention turned to the creator behind it and the reason it had been concealed underground. Old excavation notes became relevant once more. A few months ago, during a search of the British Museum's records, Mike stumbled upon a dusty leather diary that belonged to Leonard Woolley, a renowned archaeologist from the 1920s. In it, there was a brief, unsettling mention of a god's purse that had been unearthed and promptly deemed a fake. Initially, this discovery was disregarded. However, now it seemed to serve as a subtle caution. So, what did this handbag mean to the world? Let's dive in. Where memory took shape. Ancient artworks frequently depict a particular item with a strong presence known as the handbag. This object can be seen consistently throughout Mesopotamia, spanning from present-day Iraq to Turkey. It usually takes the form of a small box with a curved handle, often depicted being held by gods, winged beings, and prominent leaders in stone carvings. Scholars have attempted to interpret its significance over the years, with some dismissing it as mere decoration, while others suggesting it may have served a practical purpose as a container, bucket, or tool holder for everyday use. However, the increasing frequency of its presence made it increasingly difficult to overlook. The form remained consistent. The manner in which it was grasped remained consistent. Its positioning was always deliberate. This was not a void simply filled on a whim by an artist. It was a meaningful symbol meticulously placed, with profound connections to the spiritual and cultural beliefs of past civilizations. In locations such as the Palace of Dur-Sharrukin, constructed under the reign of Sargon II, there are depictions of winged beings called the Apkallu holding these artifacts. Just by being there, they convey a sense of authority and religious obligation. These beings were no ordinary individuals. They served as guardians and mentors, linked to a divine power and esoteric knowledge. The purse they hold appears to validate this link, suggesting that it contains something valuable and intangible. The presence of the same shape at Göbekli Tepe is even more remarkable. The enormous stone pillars at this site have been dated to almost 11,000 years ago, predating the emergence of the Sumerian civilization. This indicates that the symbol has ancient origins, going far back into prehistoric times. It implies that the concept was not freshly developed by subsequent societies, but rather was handed down through the generations. The symbol endured not due to its aesthetic appeal, but because of its significance. The concept of perpetuity persists within Neo-Assyrian architecture, with the imposing figures of Lamassu. These mythical creatures, embodying both human and animal characteristics, were positioned at palace gates as guardians. Over 100 Lamassu statues have been uncovered at various historical sites. Their grandeur and significance have fascinated observers since they were unearthed in the 1800s. Despite the passing centuries, their impact can be seen in contemporary styles, such as Art Deco. Throughout different eras and cultures, the motif of the handbag endured. The fact that the symbol endured over time implies that it held a significant concept worth preserving. Initially, it was commonly believed to be a ceremonial container, possibly used for holy water or sacrifices. This interpretation was widely accepted and comfortable. However, a minority of scholars saw a different significance in the handbag. They proposed that it symbolized the containment of not just liquid, but wisdom. In their perspective, it was a vessel designed to safeguard knowledge for future generations. The amalgamation of art, significance, and intention resulted in a lasting form. The discovery made by Mike Adams completely transformed the debate. The handbag was no longer confined to mere speculation and artistic representations. It was now a tangible object in the physical world, with weight and substance. Previously dismissed as symbolic, it now required thorough examination. The focus shifted from interpreting its significance to understanding its purpose. In old tales, the figures depicted with a handbag were frequently educators. These individuals introduced farming, communication, numbers, and legal principles to society. Instead of being remote deities seeking adoration, they were mentors providing wisdom. Viewed in this manner, the handbag symbolizes a revered responsibility, 032044, a vessel safeguarding the essentials of culture. Information was not intangible or theoretical in nature. It was protected, respected, and handled with caution. Decades of neglect were defied by this concept, leading to a more in-depth investigation. Doubt clashed with curiosity, spurring a fresh round of research. A variety of experts from different disciplines collaborated on the project. Specialists in materials, math, and language carefully analyzed the artifact. Initial findings indicated that it may have been sculpted from diorite, or a comparable type of hard volcanic rock, favored by ancient Mesopotamian artists. However, further testing cast doubt on that assumption. Mobile scanning technology detected a unique composition in the stone that was unfamiliar to the area. Along with silicon dioxide, there were also trace elements present that were not typically found in the local geology. This raised the possibility that the stone either originated from an unidentified location or had been intentionally modified. Both possibilities were unsettling to consider. The enigma intensified as experts examined the carvings on the stone. The geometric designs were precise and intentional, with spirals adhering to the golden ratio and tessellations demonstrating a high level of skill in understanding form and symmetry. These carvings were not merely decorative, they followed specific rules and patterns. Symbols similar to early cuneiform were found along the base, but they did not correspond to any known writing system. Linguists found it challenging to identify their origin. The symbols appeared to be ancient, suggesting a means of communication that remains a mystery. The significance of the handbag went beyond its physical weight. It seemed to hold a hidden message. When ancient voices began to speak again, when Dr. Hassan al-Mahmoud finally arrived at the dig site, his distinguished reputation had preceded him. He had spent over 4 decades immersed in the study of ancient Mesopotamian languages, deciphering texts that were once considered unreadable. His groundbreaking work had revolutionized the understanding of early history. However, when he laid eyes on the stone handbag, all his certainty wavered. He stood frozen, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief and wonder. This was not just a mere symbol depicted in ancient reliefs. It was tangible. It felt like a message transcending the barriers of time and space. For the following 3 days, Hassan immersed himself in the task at hand. His sleeping hours were limited, and he hardly engaged in conversation. With the help of magnifying glasses and a vast digital collection of ancient writings, he meticulously examined every single symbol etched on the bottom of the handbag. Each mark was scrutinized with great attention to detail. The symbols bore a resemblance to early cuneiform characters, yet they did not conform to any recognized patterns. They defied simple interpretation, almost as if they were protecting their significance. Gradually, a surprising realization started to emerge. This was an unknown system of writing that seemed to have existed before the earliest Sumerian texts by at least 5 centuries ago. Although erosion and division had occurred, Hassan believed he could comprehend nearly 70% of the inscription. This was a significant advancement, as it extended the known history of written communication much further back than anticipated. However, the actual message of the text was even more disturbing than its ancient origins. The writings mentioned individuals who laid the groundwork for civilization. These individuals were portrayed not as divine beings to be revered, but as mentors who helped humanity in its early development. The inscriptions indicated that they provided the fundamental elements of society, like farming, numbers, outer space studies, metalwork, healing, building design. The written word, the text hinted that civilization was not a random occurrence. It was deliberately guided. What was even more astonishing was the inference provided in the following sentences. This information was not simply communicated through words or symbols. Instead, it was actually enclosed within physical objects, such as the handbag. The container was portrayed as being constructed to last for a long period of time. It was depicted as a repository intended to safeguard and convey fundamental principles throughout various eras. At that instant, the handbag underwent a transformation. It evolved from being merely enigmatic to becoming a deliberate vessel of knowledge. The team was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety upon receiving the translated document. A few members believed that it would be too risky to open the handbag, fearing that it could cause irreparable damage or lead to unknown consequences. On the other hand, some felt a strong obligation to reveal the contents that had purposely been kept hidden. Dr. Asha Neifer struggled with conflicting feelings, weighing the excitement of potential discovery against the need to safeguard the artifact. Hassan was convinced that the makers of the handbag intended for it to be discovered. The intricate carvings, the intricate inscriptions, and the overall design of the object indicated a purposeful creation. It was clear that this was not an artifact meant to be kept secret indefinitely. Instead, it was meant to be deciphered, unlocked, and comprehended by a forthcoming generation, prepared to interpret its message. This epiphany completely altered the perspective on the handbag. It was no longer seen as a mere relic from the past, but as a sealed container of time meant to speak to the current era. Many questions arose. Who exactly were these educators? To what extent had their knowledge evolved? How had their wisdom endured through the rise and fall of entire civilizations? Now that most of the writing had been interpreted, focus shifted to the challenging task of actually opening the handbag. The task presented a great difficulty. Crafted out of one solid piece of rock, the item was empty, but completely shut. No hinges, joints, or obvious ways to enter were visible. The patterns on its surface seemed to serve a purpose rather than being ornamental. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, an expert in materials, supervised the project. By employing imaging technology, laser mapping, and intricate modeling techniques, her team pinpointed a series of pressure points along the handle and body. Collectively, These points created a specific pattern for releasing the seal. This was not something to force. It had to be solved. After days of testing and planning, the team began the sequence. Gentle pulses were applied to each point, while sensors tracked stress and vibration. As the final stage approached, the handbag released a faint hum that traveled through the stone. Then came a soft click. A thin seam appeared. Slowly, without force, the handbag opened for the first time in thousands of years. Inside waited something that changed everything forever. So what was within this handbag of the gods? Let's find out. The 7 silent keepers. When the rounded stone handle was slowly lifted, the room seemed to breathe in and hold its breath. Everything went quiet, as if time itself had paused to watch. Inside, the purse rested 7 smooth cylinders, each one placed perfectly inside carved stone grooves. They fit so well it felt as though the purse had been made just for them. The sight was beautiful, gentle, and slightly unsettling at the same time. The team stood frozen, surprised by what they saw. The cylinders were clear and softly glowing, giving off a faint shimmer. As light passed through them, gentle colors shifted and danced. They looked a little like quartz, yet something about them felt different. They did not feel natural, they felt made. Each cylinder was marked with tiny symbols. There were grains, stars, shapes, plants, tools, buildings, and thin lines of writing. Every mark seemed intentional, as if nothing was placed there by accident. From the very first scan, it was clear these objects were not ordinary. Though they were ancient, they released a steady energy signal. This discovery immediately caught the attention of Dr. Yuki Tanaka. Her instruments showed results that made her pause. The material was neither organic nor fully mineral. It behaved more like a device than an artifact. Information appeared to be stored deep within it, possibly at a level science had only begun to imagine. This was not the past speaking to the present. It felt more like the future reaching backward. Excitement filled the room, but Dr. Asha Kneifer insisted on calm and order. No one was allowed to touch the cylinders directly. They were unknown, fragile, and precious. Every detail was captured through careful photography, layered imaging, and slow scans. The team moved gently, aware that haste might damage something that had survived for ages. Each cylinder was about the size of a coin roll, small enough to fit in one hand, yet their importance felt enormous. When one was carefully lifted using special supports, Dr. Hassan Al-Mahmoud noticed something incredible. Inside the clear surface were tiny patterns packed tightly together, like words pressed into a single breath. This was not decoration, it was data, compressed beyond anything modern tools could easily manage. News of the discovery spread quickly from the desert near Uruk. Soon, experts arrived from across the world. Governments took notice. A secure laboratory was built in Baghdad to protect the purse and its contents. Linguists, physicists, biologists, astronomers, and material scientists gathered together. They all felt the same quiet awe. Knowledge had been saved in a way no one had expected. Careful study began using methods that caused no damage. The first cylinder focused on grains. When decoded, it amazed agricultural experts. It described detailed farming systems, including crop rotation, irrigation designs, soil recovery, and selective breeding. These were not simple ideas. They were advanced plans meant to protect both land and people. Sustainability, it seemed, was not new at all. Another cylinder revealed mathematics and astronomy. It contained precise geometric forms and careful records of planetary movement. The accuracy was astonishing. This was not casual skywatching. It was serious science, built on patience and deep understanding. The cylinder marked with plant and body symbols focused on healing. It described natural antibiotics made from specific herbs, with exact preparation steps and amounts. Tests showed one remedy could fight resistant bacteria. A modern crisis had been quietly answered by ancient hands. As more cylinders were studied, a pattern became clear. The knowledge was chosen with care. Farming, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, metalwork, writing, and building formed the foundation of society. The creator understood what truly mattered and protected it against time itself. Whispers from an ancient hand. The finding of the stone purse close to the ancient city of Uruk has subtly altered our perspective on the beginnings of civilization. Initially appearing odd and puzzling, the object has gradually unfolded a more significant significance. It was not simply crafted for aesthetic appeal. Rather, it served as a methodical measure to safeguard and transport valuable knowledge through vast periods of history. The handbag's transparent cylinders and intricately engraved markings disrupt a common assumption. The course of history is not always a straightforward upward trajectory. Rather, this finding implies a more relatable aspect of humanity. Knowledge can be attained and then misplaced, concealed, disregarded, and eventually rediscovered. Advancement does not solely rely on innovation, but it also involves recollection. As work progresses on the area, it is becoming evident that the handbag was not the only item present. The ground beneath the sand reveals remnants of buildings, equipment, and encrypted objects, indicating a society that existed beyond the limits of known history. With every new find, the belief grows that the history we know may be lacking. Our understanding of the past is influenced not just by what remains, but also by what is lost. Mike Adams, the one who initiated the series of events with his surprising find, has never sought recognition for his actions. He remains humble and acknowledges the original creators of the handbag, as well as the present scholars striving to unravel its mysteries. Despite his modesty, he might be regarded in history as a subtle link between different realms. A single instance of focus and perseverance unlocked a long-hidden path. There are 7 foundational principles at the core of the handbag. These principles include agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, language, medicine, and architecture. These subjects were not chosen randomly, but are interconnected, making up the essential structure of civilization. These principles are not just pieces or suggestions, but a solid base carefully selected and maintained. Researchers are still amazed by the deliberate intention behind the act. The knowledge was intentionally concealed, not inadvertently lost. The handbag was crafted to withstand war, climate change, and the effects of time. These questions become more profound as new findings emerge. Who were the individuals with the ability to acquire such knowledge? What became of their civilization? How many similar messages lie buried underground, yet to be uncovered? Where civilization began. In order to grasp the significance of this message, it is essential to revisit the origins of where it originated from. Prior to the establishment of contemporary boundaries or recorded events, the roots of human society were established in a productive area situated between the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. This territory eventually became known as Sumer. It was here that humanity first began to progress towards structured societal living. Numerous structures and practices that continue to influence the present-day global landscape originated in this particular region. In ancient Sumer, the concept of cities was introduced for the first time. Religion was structured and formalized. Legal codes were established and upheld. Oral traditions evolved into written works of literature. Infrastructure like roads and transportation networks developed. Impressive structures emerged in the landscape. The idea of civilization transitioned into reality as part of everyday existence. Sumerian culture thrived as the prevailing influence in Mesopotamia for over 2,000 years. City-states in southern Iraq experienced periods of prosperity and decline. Ziggurats dominated the skylines of each city. Commercial ties linked far-flung areas. Narrative poems were recited in communal areas. Wealthy individuals adorned themselves with gold and lapis lazuli accessories. Leadership changed hands among cities over time. Sumer flourished during the late 3rd millennium BCE. As time passed, conquests, cultural mixing, and the gradual passage of centuries led to its decline. Its accomplishments were eventually forgotten and hidden under sand, until they were unearthed by archaeologists in the 19th and 20th centuries. The initial excavations surprised the world, revealing a society that was not primitive, but rather sophisticated, structured, and highly impactful. The concepts that originated in Sumer did not disappear with the fall of civilization. Instead, they influenced Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian cultures. These subsequent societies continued to develop Sumerian ideas, impacting the ancient Near East in lasting ways. Sumer marked not just the start, but also the basis for future civilizations. The Mesopotamian floodplain saw its first inhabitants in the 6th millennium before the Common Era. These settlers were not just roaming around aimlessly, but were instead known for their innovative spirit. Their construction of irrigation canals enabled them to effectively control the erratic rivers, turning previously dry land into productive fields. The abundance of crops due to successful farming practices led to a surplus, which in turn sparked trade. This exchange of goods resulted in the evolution of small settlements into bustling villages. These villages eventually expanded into thriving cities, which served as hubs of culture, economy, and influence. Around the middle of the 4th millennium BCE, Sumer had evolved into a collection of city-states that were connected through a common language and beliefs. Key cities such as Eridu, Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Nippur, Kish, Larsa, Umma, and Adab held significant influence. The leadership of these cities was not permanent, as power would shift from one city to another over time. Each city would experience periods of prosperity followed by decline, only to be succeeded by a new dominant city. Ancient biblical texts still carry remnants of these cities, indicating the extensive influence of the Sumerians on later customs. Each city-state was governed by kings, with the Sumerian king list preserving the names of many of them. This impressive documentation can be found on various clay tablets throughout Mesopotamia, detailing rulers, cities, and lengths of reign. Some of the early kings were believed to have ruled for unrealistically long periods, while later rulers had more reasonable reigns. The merging of myth and history sheds light on how ancient societies perceived time and truth, with legend and fact coexisting harmoniously. The ancient city of Uruk, also known as Erech, was renowned as the first city-state to achieve great importance. Legend has it that King Enmerkar established it around the midpoint of the 5th millennium BCE. Uruk thrived as a metropolis bustling with around 40,000 inhabitants. Its prosperity allowed for innovative architectural projects and lucrative commerce. At the center of Uruk stood the magnificent ziggurat dedicated to the deity Anu, featuring the prestigious White Temple. This iconic structure overshadowed the surrounding scenery long before the construction of Egypt's famous pyramid. In the 1900s, explorations unveiled the true extent of Uruk's prosperity. Researchers found sophisticated metal craftsmanship in various materials like gold, silver, and copper. Impressive structures like grand temples and fortified walls were unveiled. Countless clay tablets documented various aspects of society, including commerce, legal matters, and religious practices. These types of findings were replicated in other regions of Sumer as well. Complex irrigation systems at Lagash demonstrated sophisticated foresight in their planning. In Leonard Woolley's excavations unveiled a grand ziggurat built in honor of the moon deity, Nana. The discovery of a royal cemetery near the ziggurat left the world in awe. Among the treasures found in the tombs were royal crowns, intricately designed necklaces, musical instruments, and the renowned standard of adorned with detailed mosaic depictions of both war and peace. However, alongside these remarkable findings, a more troubling truth was brought to light. The remains of servants were uncovered in the tombs, indicating they were sacrificed to accompany their rulers in the afterlife. Although Sumerian civilization exhibited great advancement, it also demonstrated a harsh and unforgiving side. Sumer's contributions to humanity cannot be quantified. The development of agriculture necessitated precise documentation. At the start of the 4th millennium BCE, traders started using basic picture symbols on clay tablets for inventory purposes. These symbols evolved into a more intricate system over time. By the beginning of the 3rd millennium BCE, this system had expanded to include hundreds of different symbols. Thus, this marked the birth of writing. The ancient script, referred to as cuneiform due to its wedge-shaped symbols, had a lasting impact on the way people communicated. It was embraced by various civilizations, leading to increased literacy in Mesopotamia. Numerous clay tablets containing various writings have been preserved over the years, including contracts, prayers, letters, medical documents, and epic poems. The introduction of writing changed the way stories and information were preserved for posterity. Despite all the accomplishments mentioned, a recurring image persists. The handbag can be seen carved into stone reliefs in various ancient civilizations, often being held by deities, rulers, and mythical creatures. The significance of this symbol was never explicitly outlined, yet it consistently appeared with purpose. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.